Yes, the King of Thieves may have won. Sure, the world may have been plunged into darkness, death, and destruction. And yeah, I may be the only hope to save the day, the only one capable of sparing the world from further chaos and tyranny. But first, I'm going to catch a really big fish so I can beat the record and win the prize. Such is the nature of the open world video game. Hyrule's population may be threatened, but I really want to get better at cooking. The Sinister Six is running rampant around New York City, but all I want to do is collect some backpacks. There might be multiple different criminals and organizations breathing down my neck, but
let's go bowling.
In fact, this is kind of the allure of these types of games in the first place. We can do things at our own pace. Sometimes I don't want to face the reality of the Vanderlyn gang struggles. I'd rather spend time in nature, hunting or roaming or simply existing. Or I can meet some strangers, help out those in need, or kill some KKK members. And in many open world games, there aren't really any stakes to doing this. The option to continue roaming is there. There are no consequences for taking several hours to do something. You can take all the time in the world. You never have to continue the story if you don't want to. In fact, I've done this before. It's a different kind of open world, but I once streamed a playthrough of L.A. Noire where Cole Phelps was called to the first crime scene only to wander off to find all 70 collectibles instead, though he ultimately missed one. In this way, open world games allow us to construct our own stories. It's interesting that these games lack the immediate pressure of goal-oriented tasks, even when such tasks still exist. There is still urgency in the game world, even if players don't feel it while they're busy relaxing or enjoying themselves. There's an argument to be made, and data to support it, that open world video games help with the stress of real life, so that's likely part of it. It's fictional, and there aren't any real stakes, so we use it to get away from reality. Sometimes it might be rewarding to take back control. We can decide what to focus on in these games without too much consequence, unlike in real life, so we will. We'll get back to the main story eventually, because that decision is ours. Honestly though, personally speaking, this is something I sometimes struggle with. Perhaps it's just a symptom of feeling like I only have a finite amount of time with a game. I want to make sure I at least finish the story, make sure I see the primary part of the game, before deciding to see the rest of it, or move on to a different game and forget to come back until I feel like I need to replay it anyway. I've spoken about this with regards to Red Dead Redemption 2 before. My second playthrough, in which I took the time to actually see more of the world and its characters, was even more enjoyable than my first, which mostly consisted of the main story missions in fear of seeing any spoilers online. I do wonder if part of the reasoning behind me doing this though is that sense of urgency. Even if there aren't any real life stakes, it still feels like there are in the back of my mind. How can I possibly unlock all the towers, complete the shrines, and search for Korok seeds when I need to get to the Divine Beasts, save Princess Zelda, and free the world? I think I've gotten a little better with this over time. Red Dead Redemption 2, for instance, is meant to take place over the course of several months, and it's a fairly long game, so it makes sense for the pace to be a little slower, for Arthur to take his time in between some missions, especially those earlier in the game whose stakes aren't quite as high. And with games like Zelda, I can trick myself into the headcanon that a lot of the side activities are just Link training so that he can go and save the world. Even collecting the Korok seeds leads to a tangible benefit for his task. Plus, Ocarina of Time has the whole time travel mechanic, which helps to ease that sense of urgency. But I do still struggle with it. Breath of the Wild's green Hyrule fields are peaceful and beautiful to explore, and I get a lot of personal satisfaction out of unlocking all of the towers. It pains me to see so much of the map still hidden. But the whole time I'm doing it, I've just got that nagging sense that I'm missing something, that this won't feel complete until I hit the credits. Ultimately, it's just a game, and none of this really impacts my real life. But in the game at least, there's still that nagging sense of duty or guilt, and it imitates similar feelings from real life. How can I possibly justify running around collecting flags and writing haikus when villages are being burned and Tsushima remains under enemy control? How do I play minigames or collect outfits while my wife and son are being held hostage? How can I travel the realms collecting poems and artifacts when Ragnarok is coming? How could I possibly be happy while the world is burning? How could I possibly be happy while the world is burning?
She let out a sound which seemed to come from the depths of her being and screamed his name. She pulled at her hair, moaning like a wounded animal. Together we grieved for the man we all loved so much. He was buried the next day at the Old Lion Cemetery. The funeral had to be cut short when snipers opened fire on the mourners.
Reading about the stories of those who, barely 30 years ago, lived through the 46-month siege of Sarajevo, which saw some 10,000 people killed, 60,000 injured, and roughly 2/3 of the city destroyed or heavily damaged, it suddenly becomes harder to care about whatever trivial problem someone in a first world nation is dealing with. It was taking place 3 decades ago. The thousands of children killed during the war would be in their early 30s today. Many of those who survived are. The war itself saw as many as 100,000 Bosnians killed and more than 1.8 million displaced. So how, while reading this book, am I meant to care about, say, my silly little video essays about video games? How could I, for a second, even consider being stressed about my car encountering difficulties? How do I put that into perspective?
We no longer bother distinguishing between day and night. We're in a daze, incapable of thinking. We spend most of our time underground. Death is everywhere, ready to claim us.
The 4-year siege of Dareia, said to have seen the deaths of over 100, followed the 2012 massacre of at least 700 people, including men, women and children, and beginning only months later, a 3-month battle said to have seen over 1,000 people killed. In June 2016, Dareia received its first food air delivery in 4 years, only to be hit by several barrel bombs on the same day. Residents were starved for years and consistently bombed. Over 160,000 people, the majority of the population, were displaced. And yet, while I read this book and consider more recent and ongoing events in Syria, here I am complaining about the nasty smell of my neighbor's apartment, and that they keep putting their own rubbish in my designated bin. How could that possibly compare? I'm in pain every day, and the pain gets worse every day because of the rash I have on my body. I can't live my life normally like other people. I can't go outside and move. I just stay home. I wish we could go back to our lives before the war, even for just one day. Right now, life is hopeless. It's destroyed. These are the words of Ahmed in August 2025, after being displaced from his home and enduring months without adequate nutrition. Within weeks, he died of starvation. He was 17 years old. More than 65,000 people have been killed in the Gaza Strip over the last 2 years, likely many, many more. Millions are suffering from food insecurity or famine. Hundreds, if not more, have already died of hunger-related deaths, over a third of them children. Some children in Gaza don't even know what fruit and vegetables taste like. In Sudan, at least 150,000 people have been killed, likely many, many more. Millions and millions of people have been displaced. Hundreds of thousands of children are suffering from malnutrition and famine. According to some estimates, more than 500,000 children have already died. There are large disease outbreaks due to poor sanitary conditions in countries like Ethiopia, Malawi, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Malnutrition in countries like Afghanistan, Haiti, Somalia, and Yemen. Conflicts, crises, and significant casualties in countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, Myanmar, Ukraine. This is happening right now. While I consider what I'm eating for dinner tonight, people just like me, just like my family, just like my friends, and just like their children, are trying to decide whether they should eat dinner tonight, or save their small quantities of food for tomorrow, or give it to someone near them who might need it more. Many, likely most, have no choice at all. How can I possibly complain about anything in my life? How can I possibly do anything in my own life? Compassion challenges us to cry out with those in misery, to mourn with those who are lonely, to weep with those in tears. Compassion requires us to be weak with the weak, vulnerable with the vulnerable, and powerless with the powerless. Compassion means full immersion in the condition of being human. This is how Donald McNeil, Douglas Morrison, and Henry Nouwen describe compassion in their appropriately titled 1982 book. And this description rightly makes compassion feel noble and brave, the right thing to do, whether it's dictated by one's religion or simply by their heart, mind, and conscience. Yet, as they continue, it is not surprising that compassion, understood as suffering with, often evokes in us a deep resistance and even protest. We are inclined to say this is self-flagellation, this is masochism, this is a morbid interest in pain, this is a sick desire. Compassion is not among our most natural responses. We are pain avoiders, and we consider anyone who feels attracted to suffering abnormal, or at least very unusual. In 1992, Carla Joinson described compassion fatigue, a form of burnout wherein one essentially feels so much helplessness, stress, and anger from compassion for others that it becomes overpowering, prompting them to become angry, apathetic, and depressed. It leads to reduced compassion as a consequence of exhaustion from compassion, from absorbing others' suffering. It's particularly common in those in caregiving roles like nurses and counselors. 20 years later, in 2012, Olga Klemecki and Tanya Singer identified compassion fatigue as perhaps misleading. It's not necessarily the feeling of too much compassion that leads to burnout. In fact, the feeling of compassion should actually protect against burnout. They argue a better term is empathic distress fatigue, empathic distress being an averse and self-oriented response leading one to withdraw, overcome by sadness and unable to assist others in theirs. And they recommended that caregivers instead learn to transform empathy into compassion before being trapped by empathic distress. In 2013, joined by colleagues Suzanne Leiberg and Mathieu Ricard, Klemecki and Singer studied 30 people by scanning their brains. In doing so, they found that while empathy training increased negative affect and activation in associated brain circuits, compassion training reversed these effects by strengthening positive affect and activation. Or as Adam Grant put it, when you see others in pain, instead of causing you to get overloaded and retreat, compassion motivates you to reach out and help, focusing not on sharing others' pain, but on noticing their feelings and offering comfort. In 2020, Jennifer DeDecker outlined a 4-step process through which one experiences compassion: awareness of the suffering, empathy for the individual suffering, motivation to do something about it, and satisfaction at having done something. If something along the way breaks down, that can lead to empathic distress. For example, a medical professional might be aware of their patient's pain, have an empathic response, and become motivated to find a solution and do something about it, but find themselves unable to do so. This is a form of fatigue, but as DeDecker writes, calling it compassion fatigue misses the point. The problem isn't that we have experienced too much compassion or experienced compassion too often, it's that we have been frustrated in our efforts to fully experience the cycle of compassion. We have instead felt empathically the pain of another, and we are distressed by the reality of it. And she's right, this can feel incredibly distressing. To have empathy for people, to feel the motivation and the need to help them, that is compassion. It is noble, it is the right thing to do. And yet, to be unable to provide those solutions, to know what to do and not have the power to do it, feels helpless and hopeless. It makes one question the foundation of human nature, the structure of society, the relevance of government and political systems if solutions are within reach yet unaccomplished. It makes one question whether compassion is worth feeling, whether empathy has a point if suffering is inevitable anyway. On this point though, as DeDecker quotes, one may wish to recall the words of Kelly McGonigal, "I am not the cause of suffering, and I alone will not be the solution to this suffering." To be clear, humans did cause this suffering, but unless there are some awfully powerful people watching my videos who I'm not aware of, we did not cause it, you and I. You and I will also not solve it, much as perhaps we would like to. But humans like us can and do help. In Sarajevo, Hana and Atka, the authors of the book, got away, protected by those with kind enough hearts. In Dareya, the book collectors kept the city thinking and feeling with their hidden underground library. They maintained hope through literature, and eventually left the city with their freedom and their dreams. In Gaza, Palestinians still have hope, they still have dreams. The people of Sudan still make jokes and smile and laugh like the rest of us. Though it may not feel like it at times, there is still light. It is our duty to find it. To be too overcome with grief and despair is to let the fascists, dictators, and demagogues win. We can donate, we can march and protest, we can advocate, and we can keep living our lives. This is the entirety of Franz Kafka's diary entry for August 2nd, 1914. Germany has declared war on Russia, swimming in the afternoon. Kafka was in Prague at the time, so this news certainly impacted him. He was called up for military service before long, though he ultimately didn't serve, and the subsequent war impacted him greatly too. An already troubled man, troubled even more. But he still went swimming, he still went to work, he still wrote. A short story was written only months later, and he still published his works. The Metamorphosis, perhaps his best-known work, written some years earlier, was published in 1915. We divide our focus because we must, lest the weight of the world come crashing down upon us. It's not to forget or trivialize troubles and catastrophes, or to become complacent. It's to not let it overcome us, or let the tyrants win. I'm reminded of something that Studio Ghibli director Hayao Miyazaki said when making Ponyo in 2006. The era that we are in now, to become grave or neurotic, or to be pessimistic, or to be nihilistic, it's all easy. It's easy to become aggressive or hysterical, or to live a solitary life. There are countless buzzwords for anxiety and loneliness. Precisely because of such times, we need to create something cheerful. It's not just about drawing everything cheerful, but to bring out cheerfulness from your own life first. We must still create art, consume entertainment, collect things, go fishing. It's within our nature, and the goal of many of these actions is to disrupt that nature. We mustn't let it. There's a quote I found from a random Reddit comment from 2023 that has really struck a chord with me, not unlike the famous Alan Saunders quote popularized by John Lennon, but not quite the same. Life happens while history is being written. We must look to and focus on history and ensure that we remember the events of today and yesterday, lest we be condemned to repeat them. We must spare moments for the ongoing genocides, famines and conflicts, the people suffering and the lives being lost, and spare time and funds to help if and when we can. But we mustn't forget that life continues to happen too, and we must let it. Go fishing or bowling, collect your backpacks and poems, make your video essays, stress out about your car, complain about your neighbors, decide what's for dinner tonight. Life happens while history is being written. Thankfully, at least, not all history is so horrific and dire. Sometimes it's positive history that occurs while life is happening. Here's the diary entry of teenage girl Dina Hill for July 20th, 1969. I went to art center by myself in yellow cords and blouse. Ian was there, but he didn't speak to me. Got rhyme put in my handbag from someone who's apparently got a crush on me. It's Nicholas, I think. Ugh. Man landed on moon.